And so when you took it, you felt better for a day or two or whatever. You felt more stable, did you?
No, lithium takes a long time to work. It takes, you don't notice any difference at all for about 4 or 5 weeks.
So taking it just, now and again doesn't really help very
Oh,
much.
no, not at all. No. You have to take it, and you have to take it seriously, and take it every day, and forget about it. I mean, it's just something that that's the way it works. And in my case, I was far more interested in trying to come up with another scheme, scam, or whatever, than worrying about whether I was taking lithium or whether I was drinking too much.
So, what were the factors that led up to you actually deciding to take it on a regular basis, the lithium?
I think because what happened in the following 2 or 3 years after the initial diagnosis and hospitalisation, I was going up and down, and it all tended to be rather exotic, going to, Hamburg and Paris and back to New York, and all of these things were all sort of becoming nearly wonderful, and then I would blow them massively, and then there would be a terrible crash, and terrible gloom and feelings of terrible blackness for weeks and months, and and this cost me it had already cost me my house.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yes.
Because I guess you have to pay for the bills at some point. You have the bodyguards and the stretch limos. It all has to be paid for at some point.
You can't do all that.
Yeah.
I bought a house in London. I bought another house in London whilst I had my first one. And I got restless and impatient before I completed buying it. And I sent a team of builders in to demolish it, to demolish the insides.
Gosh.
And I went, oh, well, the guy won't mind, when, he's on holiday anyway. And if
so you didn't actually own the house?
No.
Gosh.
And when, and unfortunately this chap came back early from his holiday.
He got a bit of a shock, didn't he?
Oh, my God. Awful. But things like that, which all of these things, there are lots of funny things, but the trouble is they have, real consequences. Here is the bill, and unless you're a multimillionaire, it's tricky. So, in the end, it was difficult for me. I went bankrupt, and it was very, very, very tough.
Yeah.
And I just realised in the end, I was very lucky to have the support of family and friends. And in the end, I thought, you've got to do this seriously. You've got to take this drug and stop these swings. And for me, I'll just zoom on the story, really. What happened was I did do that, but I carried on drinking for another 5 or 6 years, and that really meant that it shook about a bit. It was nothing terribly serious. I'd got back into work.
So you started to take lithium every day.
Yep.
And you felt after a time, you felt more of a stability in yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But you still were drinking because you enjoyed the drinking in the social
Yes, the
company.
drinking I enjoyed a lot.
Yeah.
An awful lot. And I think that, the two don't actually go together. You can't really do it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like you can't take cocaine or, you can't take all these drugs or drink with these type of, medication. You just can't do it. I mean, you may be able to have a little bit. But in my case, it was, I was very excessive and loved it.
Yeah.
But that became a problem. And in the end, in 1992, I stopped it. I gave up drinking, and that was a big turning point. Huge turning point.
And what led to that? Why did you actually stop drinking? Because you were loving it? You're on the lithium. What was the factors?
No, well, the reason was because it got me into lots of trouble. You know, I lost my driving licence three times.
It's probably a good reason.
Possibly as a minor one. I had quite a few girlfriends who would probably testify that, you know, I wasn't the nicest person. You know, I was the nicest, but then I wasn't the nicest. You know, all that's baloney. I had a very bad car crash, fell asleep, you know, at the wheel, driving, went through the windscreen. Fortunately, no one else was hurt. I think, though, that, you know, it affected my behaviour in a way that was out of order too many times. And I mean, my last one, I mean, I'll tell you, just as a funny aside, you know, as you know, the music business has a bring and buy sale in the south of France every year, Midem. And I'd got everything back together, you know, I'd got a very good job, and I'd organised 2 or 3 acts to play, you know, at this thing, gala, and I said to myself, right, you must not have a drink until the last one has finished playing. And I was very good, and I did not have a drink until the last one finished playing. And then by 3 o'clock that morning, you know, I was fighting the lead singer of one of the groups in a cafe, you know, and it was madness, you know. Who in the end was such a big guy, he actually ended up carting me back to my own hotel for my own good. And I think that was actually what led to it. I suddenly thought, you know, there's sometimes when, you know, I don't want to be, you know, I hate being too holy, but you have to make tough decisions where you go, look, it's either all or nothing. And in this case, that was what it was for me.
And I know you told me when we had lunch together the other week that it was quite a moving thing when you told your drinking mates you were stopping drinking. You were saying they all said, I really support the decision. No one was saying, oh, come on, Jeremy.
It was an extraordinary thing.
It's a real support.
That was the worst.
Cared for you.
That was the worst moment. As we all do. We're all silly, and we all go, oh my God, one of my mates going to say this is just going to be awful. They'll think I'm a right wimp, you know. And they all went, you know, great idea, brilliant, do this, please. And they're still my mates, so you know.
Great.
You know, I think that's a nice thing.
So, if we're talking about more advice for people that have bipolar or may have bipolar, manic depression, what's your advice to people? You've written this book, which has sold very well, been very well received. What do you say to people with bipolar?
Well, I think, you know, I think the first thing is that you need to have an accurate diagnosis. You know, as you know, I was also involved doing this documentary with Stephen Fry about manic depression on the telly, and I think that brought up a lot of people suddenly going, well, actually, maybe I'm a manic depressive, you know.
Yeah.
An accurate diagnosis is essential. The correct medication is essential. And it's very fashionable to say, oh, well, actually, I'm not doing medication. Sorry, don't like that. I'm not doing it. And in my opinion, and I'm not a doctor or a psychiatrist, but I'm somebody who's had it for 25 years, this is a big mistake. It's not a silly little illness. It needs medication. The only way I would say somebody could get away with not taking it in the end is if they had a very, very, very quiet life. And they didn't. So
there wasn't things to trigger the episodes.
They didn't expose themselves to any real, you know,